Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another economic capsule, and this time it's earth-shaking. It's the approval and certified consolidated budget for the government of Puerto Rico that includes the general fund, special funds, and federal funds, all combined into what central government as well as other public corporations. But what's really interesting is to look at what has been the trend, in fact what happened in 2022, and then compare it with our fiscal 2023, which just started because our fiscal year runs from July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2023. So that's fiscal year 2023. Let's look at this first graph that I am depicting here, and you see three columns there. The first column, the one on the left, is the consolidated budget for fiscal year 2022, the one that just finished. And by that time, it was approved on July 2021, and it was $21.4 billion. Of that total amount, $10.1 billion, it's the blue segment in that column, is the general fund, which is paid by taxpayers in Puerto Rico, as well as the law 154 of these foreign companies. $3.5 billion are special funds, which are really under the appropriations of the legislature, and they are legislated annually. And then the green segment, which is very interesting, it's the share of federal funds. That was for the amount of $7.8 billion. So overall, for that $21.4 billion, 36% were federal funds, which Puerto Rico does not control. 16% is the special funds, and then 47% is the general fund. That's for the central government, which makes all the insides and outs of all the executive branch and many services which are important for Puerto Rico. On February of 2022, the Puerto Rico Fiscal Oversight Board certified and amended that fiscal 2022 budget. It was at that time in January of 2022, we had the approval of the debt plan, the public debt adjustment plan, and the Judge Taylor Swain had approved it, and so Puerto Rico had to disburse, first of all, $10.9 billion. It's not that Puerto Rico was not just spending all the money for all the debt service that was not paid since 2017. It had been accumulating it for different fiscal years. It was all in the deposits of banks in Puerto Rico. $10.9 billion, which sweetened the deal for many of these bondholders. But in addition to that, the Oversight Board made some adjustments, especially in the general fund. At least that's what we have from their website. And it increased the general fund from $10.1 billion to $12.6 billion. Mind you, we are in a recession, in a depression. So Puerto Rico is swimming in money, especially from taxpayers that were paid for property taxes, sales tax, all the foreign companies that paid the Law 154 taxes and other sources of revenues. Well, that increased by $2.5 billion in this amended, and I will talk about those amendments. But let's move forward to what has been just approved as of July 1st, 2023, and that is a consolidated budget of $28.2 billion. Again, it's the third column, it's the extreme right in that graph, of which $12.4 billion are for the general fund. That's 44% of that $28.2 billion. 4.5, which is the orange sliver that you see there in that column, it's the special funds, that's 16%. And then the green sliver, it has it's on almost testosterone, it has grown to $11.2 billion, or 40% of that $28.2 billion. So So the difference between the amended fiscal year 2022 and the fiscal year which has been approved and certified by the Oversight Board in 2023 is an increase of $6.8 billion, of which almost $4 billion are federal funds, and the general fund really was reduced by almost $200 million. If you notice there, the blue section in 2022, the amended one was $12.6 billion, and now in 2023, it's $12.4 billion. So it was not an increase, it was a reduction in the general fund. Let's look now at the adjustments in this second graph, the adjustments that were made in 2022, and that tells you the story of these musical chairs, of which you and I, unless we are really following all these numbers, which are difficult to follow, will not be really aware of. Well, you know what? The Oversight Board reduced agencies' expenses in the general fund, and this is just the general fund, that's the amendment, by almost $1 billion, $982 million, which is the red column that you see on the extreme left in that graph. And then the blue segments, the blue columns, are all increases. So more agencies' expenses, $102 million, the added debt service of about $1 billion, also appropriations for the Office of Management and Budget, the legislature, and of course, court judgments which had to be paid, and it was part of the public debt adjustment plan that the Judge Taylor Swain had approved, and that increased by almost $2.1 billion. And then other expenses, which also increased by $224 million. All in all, an adjustment of $2.4 billion, which came out of taxpayers' monies in Puerto Rico. So don't let anybody tell you that Puerto Rico doesn't have money. They are. Treasury is just putting their hands in our pockets every single day. So if they're doing that, isn't it time for you and I to really hold accountable all those people who are spending our money so freely, our hard-earned money? I think we should be questioning how it is that those monies are being used. And then the final graph, table that I'm depicting here is, let's look at big 20,000 feet off the ground for the budget of 2023. And here I'm showing by area. This table depicts areas of safety, of health, of education, economic development, debt, pension, and pay go that you see there. And we are dissecting that $28.2 billion consolidated budget into the three segments: the general fund, which is the GF that you see there, that column, then the special revenue funds, which are the second, the SR column that you see there, and the FF, which are the federal funds. Notice that economic development, that which has been highlighted in orange, and so vital not only to pay all these adjustments and debt service that we have really engaged and promised that we would pay, it's only scarcely 1% of the consolidated budget. Practically nothing of the general fund is dedicated to economic development. 3% is special revenue funds, and only 1% of federal funds. And here I have to stop on saying that all these presentations of the Oversight Board, I think intellectually they should be more honest and keep the same presentations so as to make them comparable year by year. And they are not doing that. For instance, they say, oh yeah, in the general fund, economic development is about 5% of that general fund. No, it's not true, because they are adding other things that included, besides the Agency of Economic Development. They're including the Highway and Transportation Authority, they are including rum taxes, they're including other things which are not included under the category of economic development of prior years. I am just including that same economic category so that we are comparing oranges with oranges and not oranges with apples. So it is really questionable. How are we going to pull out of this economic depression if only scarcely 1% of the budget is dedicated to economic development. Worse still, we have assumed, and this is our engagement, is that Puerto Rico will pay debt service, it will pay the pensioners, and it will pay pay-go, which is what you and I pay for the checks of those pensioners. They are paying from the general fund. It's the sliver there, shaded in purple. 35% of that general fund, of that $12.4 billion, a third of that is already going, it's not flexible, it's just going away to paying debt, pensioners, and pay-go, people who are not even working in the labor force. And we need people to work in the labor force. So in special funds, it's about 11% dedicated to debt, pensions, and pay-go. Nothing from federal funds, thank God. And in terms of the other areas, let's look at the blue segment. In terms of health, 31% of health is financed by federal funds. Education, 23% is financed by federal funds. Guys, more than a quarter of education and almost half and a third of health is dependent on the whims of Congress, of U.S. Congress. Is this really the path forward that Puerto Rico wants to continue in terms of that dependence on federal funds, whereas we are dedicating so much in terms of debt and pensions and pay-go? Certainly we have to really reconfigure our priorities. So don't forget, those of you who like our economic capsules, to subscribe to the Voice of Heidie Calero, which we record every Thursday. So I invite you to subscribe under the Voice of Heidie Calero on YouTube, and to give us a like for those economic capsules you like. And don't forget, the economy is all of us. Thank you.